Okay, so I'm looking at this right now, this checklist here. Some of you are not so sure what my expectations are still yet. So I'll share with you today and we'll go through some of the questions. Now, often when you see the number of sentences that appear in a word problem, it kind of gives you a hint of how complex that problem is and how many steps you likely need to solve. My expectations are quite clear by now. I have a segment for model drawing. A segment for equations. And a segment for working. Right, practice my read and repeat. It's a while since we have started class. I'm puzzled that how some of your tables is still empty. Right, I'll carry on with this. Read and reread the first step of our race. Mark earns $35 a day. How much does he earn in 31 days? Now, to most of us, this may be a quite quick to answer question, just 2 sentences, likely to be just 1 or 2 step word problems. But diligently, I'll practice my race and diligently, I'll practice my annotations. That practicing helps me to be faster and faster at it, such that when I meet a long and complicated question, the annotation steps is something that was really very skilled and fast to do with. Okay, so read and reread. Read again. Mark earns $35 a day. How much does he earn in 31 days? I've marked, and that's the only character that I see here. So I have Mark, who is he, so I must identify he. I have dollar sign here, there's something about money. And there's something about days. So there are 3 different things here. You have Mark as a person, dollars as a money, and you have days as a unit. And also dollar sign. So 3 different things in the story. Clearly, there must be some relationship between them. Next question. Is Mark important? Can I change Mark to somebody else? Yes, so Mark's not so important. Dollars and days, are they important? Yes, so they are both important. Let's take a look at this. Would I have equal parts in this? It'll give me an idea of like a group each and total thing. Which one over here tells you it's a group? It's the identity of a group. Not quite sure, isn't it? Because usually when you talk about groups, it's like a container that you hold things. So how do I identify group is when you notice that item repeating. So I have $35 a day. And this seems like it's attached. That shows the relationship. That means you've got 1 day, and 1 day he gets $35. So you have to find out that relationship. So such that you have a day, and a day, the next day, the next day, the next day, until they're all 31 days. And average day is the same. It's 35, it's 35, it's 35. So you see 35 repeating because every day is the same, they're equal parts. There are no unequal parts. And it says here, how much does he earn in the 31 days? So you are talking about the whole of the 31 days. You don't need the difference. The sum is like the repeated addition of the 31 days. So you need to find the sum actually. So in other words, you have 31 days as the group. Each is $35 and you have to find the total. Because of that, 1 day is a unit, 31 days is 31 units. So in other words, you are $35 times 31 days. So I do my working at the side here, 35 multiplied by 31. 35 times 1 is 35. 35 times 30 will be at a 0 here. Push it because it's 30, just the tens place. So I push it to the next place value. And I got 15. And then I've got this. Add them, the partial products together. So which means I have 31 days, I will get $1,085. So I've done my annotation, circle, highlight, underline, arrows. I've done the model. I have my equation and working. Model, equation, working. Check if I have the units. Dollar sign is the unit. If I don't have the dollar sign, it's minus half mark. Check my working if I added correctly. And the partial products one more time. Okay, finish. Model, equations, working. Because there are 31 days, I won't draw 31. Many, too many. So I just put the dot in between. They represent a lot. I repeat this one more time, class. If I see that in your work, you don't have a model, I will not mark. I repeat that again. If I see in your work, you don't have these three things. Model, equation, working. Model, equation, working. I will not mark. I said that for the third time. In your work that you submit later, you must have these three things. Model, equations, workings. Otherwise, I will not mark. Understand? Right, so that is question 1 for page 63. Because I'm explaining, I take longer time to solve it. If I'm just doing it by myself, it will be fairly quick. Okay, next page. Page 64, question number 3. Now I'm just going question by question. After we are done with all the questions, I will show you how we can actually understand the type of questions better, and that will be able to help us to solve and understand, and you can start categorizing and recognizing some of the common questions. Yes. And you're able to solve the questions with greater ease. And no matter which question you see, you will not be so challenging. In a game show, Mr. Tay scored 4,314 points. Mr. Salim scored 7 times as many points as Mr. Tay. How many points did Mr. Salim score? Read and reread again. In a game show, Mr. Tay scored 4,314 points. Mr. Salim scored 7 times as many points as Mr. Tay. How many points did Mr. Salim score? There's Mr. Tay, Mr. Salim, and there's this thing about points. Now, in this case, 4,314 is related to points, and all of them are scoring points in a game. So points is like the units. What's more important is to identify the relationship between these two people, Mr. Salim, Mr. Tay. How do their points compare to each other? Here says, I have Mr. Tay. I do not have Mr. Salim. I seem to have equal parts here because there's this point about 7 times as many as. So equal units. Mr. Salim is not equal to Mr. Tay. Who is more? Salim is bigger. Do I need to know the two of them add together? No need. Do I need to know, or is it given about how they are different? Not so much. It's more of the relationship that's said. So here says, we agree Mr. Salim is the bigger amount. 7 times as many. Meaning, Mr. Tay is 1 unit. So Mr. Tay is 1 unit. 1 unit of points. Mr. Salim is 7 of these units. Equal size. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6, 7. 7 of these units. Well, in Singapore, we learn the model method. In some countries, they do a different one. They call it a stack model. So I can draw Mr. Tay as this, Mr. Salim's here, and I can stack it up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It works too. It's called a stack model, but seldom used in Singapore that much. But it works as well. Actually, it's the same thing. You just turn it over, it's the same thing. Isn't it? You just left to right. And a lot of the time, it's just because of the space that's given in the book or in the test exam paper. That's why you choose to draw in a certain manner. So, you need to find Mr. Salim. Mr. Tay is 1 unit, and that's so in other words, 1 unit, that's 4,314 points. Mr. Salim, that is 7 units. So it will be 4,314 points times 7. You notice I'm using arrows to draw units to points. I don't use equal signs because the arrow shows relationship. It doesn't show equal. 7u equal to this does not make sense. It is not equal. So I use the arrows to show a relationship. I'm insisting my children on primary 4E right in this manner. Why? Because at primary 5, you're going to start dealing with multiple chapters in a single word problem. If you can start having a good habit of how you write equations, it will help you a lot to reach primary 5. Because it can organize your equations, it can organize your thinking in a manner that helps you to solve. and find the information also if you need. So 4,314 multiplied by 7. I was marking your long multiplication. I advise everyone, please practice often. The mistakes in the working is going to be a heavy cost in your exams and tests. What's more a word problem? So if you notice, I usually end with the equation that shows the answer. Mr. Salim, with the arrow that shows the relationship, his relationship with Mr. Tay was 7 times as many. So the number of points is multiplied, and I've got my units. The units is points here. Not dollar sign, not apple, not liters, is points. Next, as we move along, you realize that how some questions shows very quickly two sentences, relationship is very clear. That means how fast you can solve a problem. So moving on very quickly to the next one. Oh, I better check my box. I did my annotation. I have my units, model equation. Okay. Right, moving on. A tank can hold 3,645 liters of water. How much water can 3 such tanks hold? Well, by now, such problems is this question is more like a primary 1 and 2 question, because it goes with a very quick identity of a group, because it's like a container that holds things, and each of them, so a tank is each, and that's the amount inside. And 3 such tanks shows group. How much can it hold? That shows total. So I have the group. The group is 3 tanks. I have the each. Each is 3,645 liters. And ask you for the total. Model, equation. 1 unit, 3,645 liters. I need 3 units. 3 units is 3,645 liters multiplied by 3. Do my working at the side. $10,925 liters. Check units. Meters. Check working. Model. Equation. Working. So you see my model, it doesn't really need to look at the bottom. It's a representation of how I can use the information given in the question to solve. So when you reach primary 5, or even the later chapters this year, you will notice that when you start to draw things in the annotating a question, it might not always be a wrong one. So in a number patterns or a pattern identification question, the model will not be this. You'll probably be drawing the next pattern. For example, that's what I'm talking about, is the question here. So my model will be the next pattern. So in the guess and check question, our model instead of model will be choosing a listing on table. Okay, so that's the method. Okay, moving on. So far still at level 1 questions. There were 1,390 bottles of drinks. A worker packed them into boxes of 8 each. How many boxes of 8 bottles of drinks were there? How many boxes of drinks were not packed? Now, if you look at this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 sentences already looks more complicated. But look at the amount of space given, not a lot. So actually, this question is not that supposed to be complicated. That's how I estimated the difficulty of the question. But clearly, there's more understanding required because there are 4 sentences. So I read it again. There were 5,390 bottles of drinks. A worker packed them into boxes of 8 bottles each. How many boxes of 8 bottles of drinks were there? How many bottles of drinks were not packed? There's this word unpacking. Likely, there's the idea of the group each and total. And maybe not packed. There's probably a remainder. Eight bottles each. Groups talks about boxes. I've got 8 each. Now, total number of bottles is given. Groups, I don't know. It asks you how many boxes. So this tells you I'm looking for a group. How many not packed? Ask you for remainder. So we have 2 identities that are missing. I've got these bottles. Altogether, there are 5,390 of them. Of course, I will not draw until 5,000 bottles. I will probably take just a few, draw a few like this. My model. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 into one box. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 into one box. And I've got some more all the way until 5,000. So one box is 1 unit. I don't know how many boxes I can fill. But inside one box, I know there can be 8 bottles. So I need to find out how many boxes. That's how many units. So I'll take the total, which is 5,390 divided by 8 bottles each. And that will be, do my working. Eight, 864, 87, 56, 86, 48. 86, 48, 87, 56. 83, 24, 84, 32. So it will be 373 remainder 6. That's the division. Which means the number of boxes, that's 673. And the not packed That's the remainder. So, is this correct? Okay, moving on. This is on record. This is recorded. So if you really need to, you can go home and look at it again. I'm moving on to level 2 questions now. As you see on the page itself, it's one whole page per question. Clearly, the question is a lot more difficult than it is. And you have all these problems onto page 76. Many problems. Okay, so I'm looking at page 67 now. Page 67. Okay, page 67, one level 2 question, and we are somewhat done for the day. And then you'll be, page 66 is homework. Right. In page 67, read the question. The difference between two numbers is 2,452. The greater number is 5 times the smaller number. Find the sum of the two numbers. Read it again. The difference between two numbers is 2,452. The greater number is 5 times the smaller number. Find the sum of the two numbers. Well, not a lot of the characters here. It tells you there are two numbers that are different. I've got a bigger number. I've got a smaller number. And then there's a sum and difference to talk about. I'm given the difference. I don't have the bigger number. I don't have the smaller number. I need to find the sum. So you can see I have a question mark, question mark, question mark. I don't know what's the smaller number, is not given. I don't know the greater number, that's not given. But I have the difference, that's the information I have. I need to find the sum. The big number plus the small number. With so many missing information, I need to look at it again. There's something in the information that can provide some help. And that's the relationship between the greater number and the smaller number. The relationship is 5 times, meaning the smaller number is 1 unit. And the greater number is 5 times of that, that's 5 units. So if I were to draw a model, I'll draw 5 units for the bigger number. That's the bigger number, or I say greater number. And then 1 unit for the smaller number. Now, here says, the difference of the two numbers, the difference between the two numbers is 2,452, which means here. And that's the difference between the two numbers. The greater number is bigger than the smaller number by 2,452. which means 4 units, that's the difference, is 2,452. The question is asking for the sum of the two numbers. And how many units is that? That's a total of 1 plus 5, 6 units. So I need to find what 6 units. Okay, so let me find 1 unit first. 1 unit will be 2,452 divided by 4. That's 613. The sum is 6 units. That will be 613 times 6. And that's the answer. Now, when we deal with the word problems here, it's not exactly the most fun topic. But I hope you find the sense of accomplishment and success when you are able to solve it and complete it. And the next sense of satisfaction is how you present the answers. If you are able to do it in a neat and tidy manner, it really makes you stand out as a very good problem solver. And it starts from problem forwards. When we are done with this chapter, the next chapter, as I said, is going to be a more fun one, a hands-on symmetry chapter. There's a lot more things that is more fun. And there's a project area where you do for symmetry. So a little bit more fun, something to look forward to. But still, before we take that break of serious and slightly more boring stuff, I wish you that you feel encouraged to try to deal with these problems with a positive attitude. Feel the success of number 1, able to present the answers in a neat and tidy manner. I'm very sure many of you can be even neater than I am. I'm not exactly a very neat person. I'm looking forward to using some of your answers as examples for other students. Number 2, able to solve it. Okay, good. Okay, so your homework is page 66. If you like, you can try 68 as well. Okay, I'll repeat one more time. I would like to see that you have all the annotations, model, equation, and workings, checking for units, and all the essential steps. So if you can see, my annotations has 2 items. One is the circle underline, 2 is the checklist here. It helps me to solve the question. So you see the top part here is really a step-by-step that helps me to solve this. And finally, my equations and workings. The minimum you need to have model, equation, working. And no, I'm not going to do that. I would like to start with the good habits now. And slowly, when you get really expert at it, when you reach nearer to the end of the year, maybe some of the steps you can don't do it, and you'll be able to take shortcuts at it. Okay? But before you reach that shortcut stage, I really want everyone to work towards being really expert at it. Okay, that's it. Bye. See you tomorrow.